Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. Looking at Zechariah chapter 12, and I read this verse the other day, but it concerns all nations coming against Israel in the last days. And this is really the turning point. When will all the nations of the world stand against Israel? It seems like it now, but there is still some support. I'm going to take a look at a couple of articles. What will happen if, Biden stays in power? What will happen if Trump comes to power? Will Trump support Israel and then prolong or put off Bible prophecy, the coming of the Lord? If Bible prophecy is true, then all nations have to come against Israel at some point in time. We certainly see the war building, and I think really the next thing that's going to happen is the American support for Israel. When you see that really waning and that really shutting down, and with all these protests, anti-Israel protests happening around the college campuses, there's a whole new generation of young people that are against Israel for the so-called war crimes and genocide and all these sorts of things. You can see in a generation, the whole nation is going to be against Israel. Is it going to take that long? I don't think so, but you can see it happening. And so we're marching towards a war, and we're marching towards a time, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, where all nations come against Israel, and Israel has, nothing else they can do except call out to God. Now, this is, let me go to hide that. This is Zechariah chapter 12. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about. When there shall be in the siege both against Judah and Jerusalem, and in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves shall be cut to pieces. Now, what happens when the economy collapses, mainly when the economy collapses? Countries fall apart. You go into civil war, and that's exactly what happens there. The countries are cut in pieces when the economy collapses. And I think what God is going to do is he's going to pull his blessing from the nations, from the United States, and they will descend into civil war, just like the movie. It says, shall be cut into pieces, though all the people of the earth shall be gathered together against it. So at some point, all the people of the earth will be gathered against Israel in the last days. Genesis chapter 12. Says this, and this is key. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So this is the blessing of Israel, basically, as the nation that came out of Abraham. And you could ask the question, is the Lord blessing the United States right now as the world leading nation, as the policeman of the world, as the holder of the world reserve currency? So far, the blessing is still there, but it will be taken away at some point. This is, under the Biden administration, the U.S. is withholding sensitive intelligence on Hamas from Israel. Biden had been willing to share valuable information regarding the whereabouts of Hamas leaders to stave off invasion of Rafah. So Biden is basically saying, don't go into Rafah, and we'll give some information to you, which means effectively that they're withholding information. So, and that to me tells me that the Biden administration does not support Israel. And you got to look at that. The blessing of God is the blessing of God being kind of peeled back and going away. What happens if Trump gets into power? Well, interesting. This is Israel365news.com. Trump vows to support Israel's right to win its war on terror. At a rally in New Jersey, the former president voiced his support for Israel's right to win the war on terror. So support, U.S. supporting Israel. Again, if Trump gets to power and the general leadership and government of the United States supports Israel, then I think there will be a blessing and a protection from God on them so that they can protect Israel. I think that very much is a thing. Here is another article, allisrael.com. Trump says he's rethinking his support for a two-state solution, and that's good because all the land is Israel's land, and this two-state solution thing is not what the Bible says is going to happen in the last days. Eventually, Israel will get all of its land back. And I've done videos about the Levant, the original historical landmass as written of in Genesis, about how big Israel is, and it's quite big. And every time they go to war, interestingly, they get more land. But again, Trump here, will the blessing stay on the U.S. If they get new leadership? Possibly. So we'll see how that turns out. But again, Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. So something to think about. And again, the second piece is that all nations will be gathered against Israel. So at some point, the United States won't have a government that supports Israel, and they will turn away, and that could very well be Trump. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Trump is certainly not a savior. He's saying the right things because he knows what the right things to say are, but he's not perfect, and we know the truth through the various trials of, he's a sinner. He's a fallen man just like you and I, and he needs Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, I don't believe he's saved based on interviews that I've seen and videos of people kind of asking that question and researching it. It doesn't appear as if he's saved, but maybe he is. So I'll end off with this. Putin using nuclear weapons, and there's 3 different scenarios that NATO thinks could take place. And this is War News 247. Russia will hit a target with a tactical nuclear weapon. So this is where we're at in this war. We are now talking about the fact that, according to NATO, that Russia is effectively ready to drop a tactical nuclear weapon. Why? Well, to kind of turn the tide to, it's a bit of a stalemate, a bit of a grind. Russia needs to show overt and strong power against NATO. And, people are getting tired of this war on both sides, in Russia and NATO. And so Russia wants to come out and show a bit of power. And so NATO thinks they're going to do this, and they're going to be the first. Now, this could be, one of those Black Swan events or PSYOP or whatever, where, the oil pipeline was blown up. Must have been Russia that blew up their own pipeline. A nuclear weapon went off. Must have been Russia. Meanwhile, it could be NATO simply trying to, trick everybody and goat Russia into World War III effectively. NATO is studying 3 scenarios, and this is what the British say apparently. Russia will fire a tactical nuclear weapon in the final phase of its exercises. British and American intelligence reports say NATO is trying to identify who the target will be hit and who will get hit first. That means Putin partially adopted Russian generals' view of a tough show. Now, he just did a big move in his war generals, and he kind of shuffled a whole bunch of people around. Is it because they're getting ready for nuclear weapons, or is it because he didn't like the suggestion of nuclear weapons? I don't know. That's a question out there. But he shifted, Shigoyan and a bunch of generals around. Now, maybe that's a regular thing he does as well to kind of keep them guessing, keep them on their toes, so that a coup can't be organized against them. But he did shift his chain of command up significantly. So what are the 3 scenarios? The International Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, examines 3 scenarios for possible use of nuclear weapons. And again, we are talking about this near 2024. This is now common knowledge, and nobody seems to care. Are they covering this on the mainstream media? Probably not. The IISS admits that the West and NATO are preparing for such a scenario. The first scenario, Russia will strike an uninhabited area or a sea target with a tactical nuclear weapon. Now, Canadian Prepper has suggested this is what's going to happen. They're going to, hit somewhere in Siberia with a tactical nuke, just again to show the world that they have it, that they're ready to go, that they're practiced and performing, and these sorts of things. And this could be a warning again to NATO to back off. It says this, for example, can be a target in the Black Sea, and the medium can be a nuclear torpedo. The second scenario could be a low-yield nuclear strike on the battlefield. Again, scaring Ukraine into maybe submission, into declaring that Russia wins and to give them land. It could very well be kind of that final thing which convinces Ukraine, okay, we can't go any further. This is what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. When those bombs were dropped by the United States, that was it. Japan surrendered. And so you got to look at the nuclear weapons as, could we stop this war now and cause the other party to surrender if we use a big enough nuclear weapon? So the third scenario, then, it says the attack will take place in a large populated area with the aim of a political end to the war. So this is the Hiroshima Nagasaki situation where they kill a huge number of people, and it scares everybody so badly that no one wants to go to a thermonuclear World War III, and it scares them into peace, basically. The idea is to end the war, beheading the Ukrainian authorities, taking out Zelensky, for example. It says the British conclude that scenarios number 1 and 3 are unlikely to materialize for different reasons. Number 2 is the low yield strike on the battlefield. So with a Kinzhal hypersonic missile, whatever it may be, and just a little warning for NATO. This is what the British conclude, the intelligence agencies. The former proudly won't affect Ukraine's will to fight or Western support for Kiev, but will generate massive global political condemnation. So the first one is where they, light up a nuclear weapon in Siberia or something. But that's going to get on the radar of the national news, and then the whole world would come against Russia, right? Scenario 3 will strengthen Ukraine's will to fight, it says, as well as global support for Ukraine. So if they take out a huge number of Ukrainians, a big populated area, again, this would get the world on their side and against Russia, and that would not be good. Simply put, it says there are no attractive military targets for Russian tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Kiev does not operate with a concentration of force large enough to justify a 10 to 50 kiloton explosion. Smaller nuclear weapons can be even less useful. So interesting commentary on the potential use of a nuke, when it could happen, where it could happen, and why strategically for Russia. Again, will there be something like the Nord Stream pipeline explosion where, oops, a nuclear weapon went off, must be Russia that did it, and done by the intelligence agencies? You have to look at that scenario very, very seriously. I think Russia is very smart. They're very strategic. I think the United States and the West are a bit dirty, and they're willing to play dirty, where Russia is probably not willing maybe to play dirty quite yet, in terms of planting weapons or that sort of thing, or exploding a nuclear bomb and saying it's the other side. Whereas again, Nord Stream was blown up and it was blamed by the Western media on Russia. That means that, and it wasn't Russia. There's no excuse in the world that makes sense that Russia would blow up their own revenue-producing oil pipeline. That means the United States and NATO are willing to do whatever it takes to sway opinion for whatever short period, for whatever purpose they want, and to goad Russia into war, to convince them, to trigger Putin to retaliate. And that's what the West, I think, is doing. And it's a dirty game. It's not fair, but war isn't fair. I don't agree with it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be. It's kind of like going after Trump with all the lawfare. It seems like that side wins the battle because ultimately they create a mess for years and years and years, and it doesn't seem like justice is ever done. And it seems like they're winning, at least for a short period. So, if World War III were to start, is the West going to win it? I don't know. It could be time for the West to lose a world war. To be absolutely honest with you, if the Lord doesn't return. And that's very well, we may indeed see that. And that's what the prophetic outlook is, kind of the end game of Bible prophecy, where the United States is no more. Canada is not mentioned. Australia is not in the scriptures. So it speaks of a time when the West, NATO, is completely insignificant, and everybody's focused on the Middle East, and everyone has come against the Middle East. And it speaks to a time when there's probably economic collapse. The United States has fallen apart. All Western nations have fallen apart, probably due to economic collapse and famine. And they probably don't have a lot of power. Remember in Ezekiel 38 and 39, the nations are left saying to the invading neighbors, Gog and Magog, and all the bands that march with them, have you come to take a spoil? Why are you going into Israel? But they're not willing to support Israel during that time, in that Ezekiel 38 and 39 war there. And that could be because they're decimated with nuclear weapons, with World War III, with famine, with economic collapse, or all three, all of the above could be happening at that point in time. So those are my thoughts on nuclear war and the whole situation with the blessing of the United States. I think the blessing will be pulled. I don't know that a leader can change it at this time, and justice is coming to the Western nations. And so it's not a good time to start World War III, given that, the the justice has been, the wrath of God almost has been withheld, and God has been very patient with the West, with the United States. But that will come down, and I think take the United States and all Western nations off the map in terms of the political endgame, the geopolitical endgame, and certainly they're off the map in terms of Bible prophecy, because the Bible doesn't speak of anything other than the young lions of Tarshish, which could refer to the United States as a nation, or Australia, Canada, that sort of thing. So interesting times that we live in, and Bible prophecy is coming to pass. But I think the thing to watch maybe is the United States, their support of Israel. If they can start to go against Israel, look for that blessing to be removed, and for catastrophes and terror attacks and huge troubles to start up in the United States, maybe leading to civil war or worse. So I'll leave there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.